Today, we're diving into a cosmic origin story. But, it's not the usual one about stars and galaxies. This is about the birth of understanding itself. We're going to trace the path from a single, fundamental reality all the way to how our minds can even begin to comprehend it. So here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off with the one primordial fabric of everything, then see how the first structures begin to pop up. After that, we'll get into the wild, ironic twist of consciousness that kind of fractured our view of the world, which then led us to invent math. And finally, we'll see how this fabric literally became self-aware and how science is our big attempt to see the whole picture again. Okay, so every logical story needs a starting point, right? A ground zero. Well, for reality itself, that starting point is the one thing that is, quite literally, everything, the primordial fabric. Now, the core idea here is absolutely key. Reality isn't a collection of separate little parts. It's one, single, indivisible object, the ultimate ground truth. Think about that for a second. Every star, every planet, even every thought you have, it's all just a ripple in this one continuous medium. This is the absolute foundation of it all. A single, unified fabric is a great place to start, but our universe is incredibly complex, right? It's full of structure. So the big question is, how does a perfectly smooth, singular object give rise to, well, everything we see? Well, it turns out the fabric isn't static. It has these inherent properties, almost like a cosmic elasticity, that allow it to bend, to vibrate, and to form stable patterns. You see, it was never perfectly flat. Right from the get-go, it held all the potential for this incredible, complex geometry. And this process builds up in layers. First, the fabric gets these little wrinkles that form stable pockets of energy. You can think of them as resonance carrier balls. Now, these aren't separate things. They're just localized patterns within the fabric. And the specific way these patterns vibrate, their internal resonances, that's what gives rise to what we call elementary particles. Electrons, photons, you name it. And this leads to something really crucial: geometric isomorphism. It sounds fancy, but the concept is pretty straightforward. These patterns in the fabric map directly onto the physical geometry of our universe. They literally form its architecture. So we've got a fabric that creates particles and structure. And eventually, out of all these stable structures, life emerges. And with life comes consciousness, which, believe me, introduces a really profound and kind of ironic twist to our whole story. And here it is, the great irony. The actual reality is one continuous, unified whole. But our perception, thanks to evolution, it's a world of countless separate objects. In a way, we're kind of doomed to see distinctions. For survival, it's incredibly useful to see a tiger as a separate object from the grass it's hiding in, right? But in doing so, we've created this fragmented mirage, inventing boundaries and edges where, in the underlying fabric, none actually exist. But this biological doom of seeing separation, it wasn't the end of the story. In fact, it became the catalyst for one of our greatest inventions. So when your brain is hardwired to see a world of distinct things, what's the next logical step you're going to take? You invent a way to describe them. I mean, once your brain sees two wrinkles in the fabric as two separate things, the invention of the number 2 is pretty much inevitable. The very act of making distinctions is the womb of mathematics. We identify objects, we invent numbers to count them, and from there we figure out more complex things like number structures and fields. Our greatest tool was literally born from our greatest illusion. And now we get to a huge shift in perspective. Armed with our shiny new tool of mathematics, we started to investigate the universe. But we were doing it under a totally false assumption, the assumption that we were somehow separate from it all. Just let that sink in for a moment. This isn't just some poetic line. It's a fundamental change in how we see ourselves. We are not outsiders looking in on the universe. We're an intricate part of the system, a manifestation of the very fabric we're trying to understand. So the old view was that we're independent observers, standing apart from reality to measure it. But the new reality? We are wrinkle constructions. We and all our scientific instruments are made of the exact same fabric we're studying. We are the universe, having developed the ability to investigate its own nature. How cool is that? And this brings our story full circle. We started with this unified whole, got doomed into seeing everything as fragments, and now we use the very tools born from that fragmentation to try and see the whole thing again. If you think about it, our most profound scientific theories are basically just tools for stitching our fragmented perception back together.
General relativity, for example, it bridges the gap between what we call empty space and massive objects, showing they're totally interconnected. Quantum mechanics gives us the language to talk about the tiniest little wrinkles in the fabric. And these mind-bending ideas like the holographic principle, they challenge the very distinction between a volume and its boundary. Each one of these is a bridge, helping us see the unity that's hidden from our everyday senses.
To manage all this incredible complexity, we developed an even more refined tool, information theory. Now, this isn't some fundamental law of the fabric itself. Nope. Instead, it's an incredibly elegant application of the numbers we invented, all designed to organize and make sense of the distinctions we perceive. It's basically our ultimate map for navigating the illusion of separation. So let's just run through that whole logical chain one more time. It all starts with a one unified fabric. That fabric develops wrinkles and structures. Then consciousness evolves, forcing a perception of separation. That separation leads directly to the invention of math. Using that math, the fabric, in the form of us, begins to investigate itself. And finally, all of our best science is this grand attempt to reverse engineer our own perception and see the unity once more. It's really a beautiful circle when you think about it. Which leaves us with one last really provocative thought. If this order of reasoning is correct, then our entire intellectual and scientific journey, all our curiosity, our discoveries, our very consciousness, it might not be just some random accident. It could be the universe's own inevitable process of waking up and finally coming to know itself.